In a world that screams for your attention, there's a place that invites you to peace. You don't need a building. You don't need a choir. You just need to turn your heart to Air One.
Air One, songs that heal, lyrics that pray for you when you don't have the words.
From Lauren Daigle to Elevation Worship and more.
This isn't just radio. It's worship for the everyday.
Escape the noise and worship now.
Download the Air One app. Ask your smart speaker to play Air One or visit air1.com. Air One, worship now.
Life Audio.
The Bible Study Podcast, episode 980. Today, the Bible Study Podcast continues a study of the book of Exodus with chapter 21. Welcome to the Bible Study Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. We're going to continue on with more instructions given at Mount Sinai, but first, a word from this sponsor.
Let's be honest. Ever read a passage and wondered what it really means in its original context? True Bible study isn't just casual reading. It's about connecting historical background, cross-references, and themes. If you've ever felt like navigating all of this is too difficult, you need to check out Logos. Logos is a game-changing platform that equips you to explore hard questions with absolute confidence, knowing you're drawing from reliable, well-respected academic resources. Whether you're at your desk or on the go, Logos helps you follow that path of discovery naturally. With their new AI tools, you can ask Logos any biblical question and get trusted answers from a biblical library. To help you dive into the layers of meaning in the Word, Logos is offering my listeners an exclusive free 60-day trial. Just go to logos.com/deep. That's LOGOS.com/deep to claim your free 60-day trial. So stop guessing and start going deeper together.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident that was not your fault, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by to answer your questions for free. Call now and find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-712-2300. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell everyone listening who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me here. It's always nice to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now. 800-712-2300. You'll find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth.
Thanks, John. You heard it, folks. Take advantage of this opportunity and call now. 800-712-2300.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states. Not available in California.
So chapter 21 starts this way. These are the laws you are to set before them. Hebrew servants. If you buy a Hebrew servant, he is to serve you for 6 years, but in the 7th year he is to go free without paying anything. If he comes alone, he is to go free alone. But if he has a wife, when he comes, she is to go with him. If his master gives him a wife and she bears him sons or daughters, the woman and her children shall belong to her master, and only the man shall go free. But if the servant declares, I love my master and my wife and children and do not want to go free, then his master must take him before the judges. He shall take him to the door or the doorpost and pierce his ear with an awl. Then he will be his servant for life. If a man sells his daughter as a servant, she is not to go free as male servants do. If she does not please the master who has selected her for himself, he must let her be redeemed. He has no right to sell her to foreigners because he has broken faith with her. If he selects her for his son, he must grant her the rights of a daughter. If he marries another woman, he must not deprive the first one of her food, clothing, and marital rights. If he does not provide her with these things, she is to go free without any payment or money. So these are part of a series of rules in the Levitical law, which we're getting to, and this instruction here at Mount Sinai that's documented in Exodus, that really go back to you were slaves in Egypt, and you're going to be my people. I don't want you to be in debt, as we'll get to, and I don't want you to be slaves forever. Now, you can have indentured servants. That's what we would call it if you were a slave for 6 years, right? If you're a slave, basically you're saying, I'm going to give you my service probably because I got into debt, but I'm not going to stay a slave forever. And that's really what this is all about. But you might have this situation where the guy realizes, hey, I'm better off being a slave for the rest of my life, being a servant for the rest of my life, in which case there's a provision here that you can say, I'd rather do that. And then you notice you have to go before the judges. You have to have somebody else say, yes, we believe this person is really saying this, rather than you're just telling us they made this decision. And then you mark them. You pierce the ear to make sure that everybody knows that this is a permanent servant. And then these whole things with selling your daughter as a servant, all of these rights here are that you're not going to be sold off to a foreigner, that if you're selected for your son, you have to be treated like a daughter. Treat these people well. You were a slave before. And therefore, we're going to have a different set of rules for you. All of these rules, you notice, only do apply to fellow Hebrews. Slavery is not illegal at this point in the Bible. We can talk about whether it should be or not, although usually slavery in this time period is not what we would call chattel slavery. It's not slavery because you are a specific color or a specific nationality. It's slavery because you got into debt, or it's slavery because your people lost to my people in a battle. So it's a little different, but, still not a big fan of slavery. But these rules were all to temper it within the Hebrew society. Personal injuries. Now, before I get into this, why do we have all these rules? Remember, you're coming out of Egypt where you were living under Egyptian rules. You didn't have Hebrew laws because you weren't allowed to have laws. You weren't in charge. And so you're basically taking this people who were slaves and turning them into a nation. Well, nations have laws. They have rules that they live by. And so we started with some basics like the 10 Commandments. Hey, just don't steal, don't kill, don't covet because it leads to other problems. Don't commit adultery, all those things. But then we're adding in more detail, as our laws also add more detail. And we get more and more laws because of precedent, because of, the judges decided in this case to apply this law in this way. They get a lot of laws here that God is specifically starting them with. Again, personal injuries. Anyone who strikes a person with a fatal blow is to be put to death. However, if it is not done intentionally, but God lets it happen, they are to flee to a place I will designate. But if anyone schemes and kills someone deliberately, that person is to be taken from my altar and put to death. Anyone who attacks their father or mother is to be put to death. Anyone who kidnaps someone is to be put to death, whether the victim has been sold or is still in the kidnapper's possession. Anyone who curses their father or mother is to be put to death. And if a person quarrels with one person, hits another person with a stone or their fist, and the victim does not die, but is confined to bed, the one who struck the blow will not be held liable if the other can get up and walk around outside with a staff. However, the guilty party must pay the injured person for any loss of time and see that the victim is completely healed. Anyone who beats their male or female slave with a rod must be punished if the slave dies as a direct result. But they are not to be punished if the slave recovers after a day or two, since the slave is their property. If people are fighting and hit a pregnant woman and she gives birth prematurely, but there is no serious injury, the offender must be fined whatever the woman's husband demands and the court allows. But if there is serious injury, you are to take life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. An owner who hits a male or female slave in the eye and destroys it must let the slave go to compensate for the eye, and an owner who knocks out a tooth of a male or female slave must let the slave go free to compensate for the tooth. If a bull gores a man or woman to death, the bull is to be stoned to death, and its meat must not be eaten. But the owner of the bull will not be held responsible. If, however, the bull has had the habit of goring, and the owner has been warned, and he has not kept it penned up, and it kills a man or a woman, the bull is to be stoned, and the owner also is to be put to death. However, if payment is demanded, the owner may redeem his life by the payment of whatever is demanded. This law also applies if the bull gores a son or daughter. If the bull gores a male or female slave, the owner must pay 30 shekels of silver to the master of the slave, and the bull is to be stoned to death. If anyone uncovers a pit or digs one and fails to cover it, and an ox or donkey falls into it, the one who opened the pit must pay the owner for the loss and take the dead animal in exchange. If anyone's bull injures someone else's bull and it dies, the two parties are to sell the live one and divide both the money and the dead animal equally. However, if it was known that the bull had a habit of goring, yet the owner did not keep it penned up, the owner must pay animal for animal and take the dead animal in exchange. We have rules like this too. Isn't this amazing? I mean, these are really detailed. You got to think about all the different circumstances that might happen. So first of all, that first one is really saying we've got different rules for manslaughter versus murder. If you and I have a fight and I throw a punch and you die, that is different from I decide that I'm going to kill you. Now, in this case, remember, they are currently in Sinai. They have no buildings. The only building they're going to have soon is a tabernacle, which is a tent. So they have only tents, so they don't have any prisons. And so a lot of these laws may seem to us to be harsh as we go on here, but they don't have a lot of options. It's not clear what they would do with somebody. They're not going to build a prison. And so a lot of these things are going to be leading to death. This one says, though, that when you get to the promised land, if you flee to a place I designate, there will be cities that are cities of refuge. And if you can make it to the city of refuge, then someone can't come and kill you. But if you're not there and you've killed someone's brother, they can kill you. So these rules will get a little more complicated when we get into the promised land. All of these things are trying to give some form of justice. What is fair? And so when we see like an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, what it's doing is it's trying to limit revenge. So if you knock up my tooth and I kill you, I'm guilty of murder, right? If you knock out my tooth and I knock out your tooth, it's saying, well, that's fair. So that's the kind of thing that we're trying to do here. If you attack a father and mother, put to death, remember, honor your father and mother is a very important thing. So even if you throw a punch at your father here, it's saying it's a serious thing. We don't want kidnappers. You can't even curse your father and mother. That's a serious, that would surprise us today, but that's how important that honor your father and mother is. And then we start getting into the details of, okay, what if I hit you with a stone, but you recover? Well, how recovered do you have to be? Well, if you can walk around with a staff, okay, but, I have to pay you. And so putting in all of this form of compensation here. Again, we don't have laws. We need laws. Anyone who beats the male servant with a rod, okay, you can do that, but if they die, then you're going to be punished. If you knock out their tooth, then you got to set them free. If you damage their eye and they can't see anymore, you have to set them free. If you're fighting and a woman gives birth, if there's no serious injury, you just, what the husband demands and the courts allow, again, patriarchal society, that is the reality of this situation. And I thought it was interesting, this whole thing with the bull. So if a bull gores a man or a woman, you put that bull to death, but the owner isn't responsible. But if the owner knew that there was a risk, this is sort of where a lot of our legality comes from in terms of if you knew that your car that you were selling me was unsafe and I die in it, that's a different thing than if you didn't know it was unsafe and I die in it. And that's the same thing going on here with a bull. So several of these things are very similar to what we have. Some of them, like cursing your father and mother being put to death, are very different from what we have. If you uncover a pit and somebody falls into it, and an animal falls into it, then you have to pay for it. You left this hazard. Basically, if I digging up potholes in front of my house and you drive into it, I'm going to be held responsible if I didn't put out those signs that say, hey, don't drive here, there's a pothole. It's similar sort of things. And then again, the same sort of thing with if my bull injures your bull, it's different if I didn't know that was going to happen because my bull has never done this before than if I did. There's going to be a lot of these very prosaic rules that are set up because you need these prosaic rules. You could have started with, if somebody is injured, we're going to do things fairly and then let judges figure it out. But it's easier to start from at least a basic framework. And again, they're being set up as a nation. They need laws. We're going to be going through some of them here. With that, we're going to end this episode of the Bible Study Podcast. If you have any questions, send an email to chris2x@gmail.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at thebiblestudypodcast.com. And as always, thanks so much for listening.
I want to take just a second to thank the team at Life Audio for their partnership with us on this podcast. If you go to lifeaudio.com, you'll find dozens of other faith-centered podcasts in their network. They've got shows about prayer, Bible study, parenting, and more.
Our world can feel chaotic and uncertain, but we don't have to live enslaved to fear. Christ has promised me and you his peace, and throughout Scripture has provided powerful tools and practical steps to help us experience greater freedom. I'm Jennifer Slattery, lead host of the Faith Over Fear podcast, inviting you to join me and my team as together we learn how to starve our fears and feed our faith. Subscribe at lifeaudio.com or wherever you access podcast content.
I'm Mark Vinette, host of the Historical Jesus podcast, which presents the new series, Miracles, focusing on biblical miracles from the Old and New Testament. Join me on the Historical Jesus podcast as I explore the interesting, compelling, intriguing, and wonderful miracle stories of the Bible and the many great miraculous events inspired by the words and deeds of Jesus Christ.